Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, Aston Villa 2, Legia Warsaw 1. That was quite the night, wasn't it, mate?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I hope everyone is staying safe, staying well. Got back from the game okay and everything last night because, some pretty horrific scenes outside of Villa Park yesterday, which I'm sure you and I will get into because it's kind of dominated the narrative kind of pre and post match, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I think when people look back at this win over Legia Warsaw, it should have been all about Villa progressing to the knockout stages of European competition for the first time in God knows how long, but kind of been marred by the pretty ugly stuff that happened outside the ground pre-match. So I hope everybody is safe and well and got back okay from the game last night. But I thought we'd kickstart on a bit of a lighter note, mate. Obviously, Spotify Wrapped came out earlier this week. Just wanted to shout out everybody who had us in their top 5, top 10 podcasts and everything like that. It was really heartwarming to see some pretty great numbers on our end. So just a big shout out to everybody that's listening, not just on Spotify, but everywhere really, because it's been another great year for the Villa Filler.
Absolutely. And we're making a conscious effort to get that more on Spotify, Apple as well, trying to get as much content out to you guys as you already know. So yeah, massive shout out to you guys. It's greatly appreciated. I think obviously there was the unsavoury scenes. I feel like that's probably been spoken about a lot now. We don't really need to come on and talk about that. But people were sort of complaining about the lineup, weren't they, really? You know, things weren't necessarily all perfect from a Villa POV, was it, mate? People saw the lineup. They saw Ollie Watkins not included in the squads. Emery said that he had a little niggle midweek. So hopefully he's all good for Sunday.
Yeah.
But, like I tweeted about it and, we've said many a time on this podcast, like, we don't think Robin Olsen is the best goalkeeper in the world, but like it's so easy just not to like tweet and lose your mind about the fact that he's starting in goal in it. Like, do you know what I mean? And I think for what it's worth, he played really well. Like his distribution has seemingly got not very good, but he's seemingly improved since the last time I think we've seen him play. He felt a lot more comfortable with the ball at his feet. Not going to be the kind of sweeper keeper that Emi Martinez is. I think we all saw the graphic on Sky Sports. I think it was something like 130 plus sweeps, which is just absolutely ridiculous since Unai Emery came in. Robin Olsen is never going to be that kind of goalkeeper, but he boasted 87% pass accuracy, had about 50 touches, made 2 saves, made 1 key pass, which is obviously that wonderful ball for Leon Bailey, which we all thought had sealed the top seed in qualification and everything. That ball's amazing, mate. We could do a podcast alone just on that. But I think, to be fair, a lot of the reaction after the game as well, a lot of people have kind of taken a look at themselves and gone, maybe we were overreacting. So obviously that's good to see. There's no reason for us to be like that with any of these players, really, mate, is there? And listen, I know it wasn't all sewn up before the game, but if you can't play your backup goalkeeper in your 5th group stage game in a European competition, then what's the point in having a backup goalkeeper?
No, totally agree, mate. Totally agree. I think we can't get too high, too low with these kind of things. Obviously, Olsen's come in for a fair bit of stick in recent years for some performances, some perhaps more deservingly so than others, I guess. But no, I thought by and large he was quite good last night. I think there's not as much kind of concern anymore. I think both we kind of forget that distribution was really not Emi's crown jewel, was it, in his skill set when Emery arrived, and it's something that he's definitely had to get better at and has done a very good job of getting better at. I think you wind yourselves back to when Unai first came in, and there was a lot of chatter around whether Unai even liked Emi. Do you remember all that? And it was kind of like there were some comments about, particularly when he was at the World Cup and his celebrations and some things that Unai kind of said about that. And it was all looking maybe a little bit fraught at points. So both you and I came on this podcast to kind of dress those down and kind of position it as maybe some things taken out of context. But Emery's probably had to kind of change his game, as have many other boys in the squad, to kind of suit Emery's style. And I think Olsen's been a part of that. I think, last night shows that, he's definitely had to work on some things and is definitely a better goalkeeper as a result. And I think it's probably a few performances now with Robin Olsen where he's been a lot better than kind of has been previously. And I think ultimately it comes down to you're in a godforsaken position as backup goalkeeper, because very rarely, if you come in and play well, there's going to be no noise about that. Nothing is going to be said. It's kind of what is expected of, if you come in and play badly and you lose a game. As soon as you lose a game with a backup goalkeeper in goal, regardless of whether it's their fault or not, it's like, you should always play your strongest side, always pick your number one, and all this sort of stuff. And so you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, if you're Robin Olsen. But no, I think it's right to kick this off with giving him some flowers, because their goal is sensational, and he could do very little about it. And I suppose we'll talk about that in due course. But no, I thought by and large, good performance from the big man.
Nail on the head, man. Nail on the head. We started this game really well, though, didn't we? Scoring as early as we did. It was good. We've been saying this for a little while. Diaby's been playing really well, but he's just been sort of lacking that goal. And it seems like he needs it to kind of kickstart, and then he'll just get a load more. He's obviously got a few goals here and there, but I feel like this was a big goal for him. Really good how he cuts inside. The keeper probably should do a lot better, if we're being completely honest. It basically goes underneath him. But it's a tidy little finish, really good bit of skills to get into that position. And after that, we kind of took our foot off the gas. I know we've mentioned so many times on this podcast, mate, that we score goals early and we kill teams off early. Maybe we scored too early in this game, because I think that maybe there was a bit of complacency that had settled in, and I think the atmosphere was weird for obvious reasons, with there not being any Legia fans there, and there was a bit of a friendly vibe to it when, realistically, we went into this game knowing that we had to win by 2 goals if we wanted to wrap up the first spot, on this day. So it's one of them where it was a bit weird, really. And I think, the atmosphere was probably better than I'm maybe giving it credit for from our end, but it didn't feel right. I couldn't, I've never been to a game where there's been no away fans. So it was weird to experience that. And I think as a result of it, we just looked a little bit flat for sort of large portions of this game, mate. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, look, as I kind of said, I think the kind of events pretty much kind of marred the whole thing. And I think it was announced, obviously, that we'd gone through and could set up the group kind of before the game. And so, whereas there's always been a little bit of jeopardy with the European nights, and whilst that's not necessarily been a good thing, I think it has certainly spurred us on at points. And look, barring Alkmaar away, this group has really not been easy. It has really not been easy. And I think it's a kind of testament to the general quality that you get across Europe. You and I are both always quick to say, be that in the Champions League or in any kind of tier of European football, these sides are always much, much better than you think. They're always tactically better. Physically, they're always very strong. And so there's no such thing really as an easy game. And you can kind of see that in all 3 tiers of European competition. And this group has been hard work for Villa. These home games have been a much sterner test than often Premier League opposition, and good Premier League opposition has been at points. And so I think you have to give all 3 sides in the group with us their fair dues with this, because it has been difficult for Villa. But when we kind of got that goal, and to kind of speak about Diaby's involvement, when we signed Moussa Diaby, this is the goal that we envisaged getting, right? It's him on the shoulder, running in behind, cutting inside, finishing on that left foot. It was the archetypal Moussa Diaby goal. And yeah, when we were watching the highlight reels and seeing what he'd done at Leverkusen, there's a hell of a lot of goals just like this, because the highlights that get played in the Bundesliga, a lot of space in behind, and we saw Moussa Diaby running behind and capitalise on that. And so it was nice to kind of see, as soon as it hit the back of the net, that's what I kind of felt. I was like, yes, I've seen this movie before. This is what he's good at. This is what he's best at. And you don't often get a lot of the opportunity kind of with that kind of space in behind the back line in the Premier League. And you can see from the way that he took the goal that it's a situation that he's very much familiar with, and one that is in many ways his bread and butter, really. And, Buba obviously is kind of at fault for the second goal, but I just wanted to give him a lot of credit for all of the kind of talk around our first goal will go to Diaby, and rightly so, but the ball is really, really well won back by Buba Kamara. And then the pass from Tielemans to put Diaby in behind is excellent as well. And so, yeah, shout out to Moussa for what was a very well taken goal. But those boys in the midfield did really well to kind of set that goal up and put us on our way. I think it was just 3 minutes into the game. And so, yeah, really nice goal from start to finish. But yeah, particularly happy for Musa because I think it's nice for him to be able to really strut his stuff like that.
I think he's tried that quite a bit, but he's just not been afforded the kind of space in and around the edge of the box when he's coming in. We've seen it so many times; it's almost like he's dribbling into a brick wall. So yeah, he'll be happy with that. We need to talk about Boubacar though, mate, because this isn't like a reactionary to, we've slept on it. I just don't think he's been at his best for the past few games, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that. And that kind of pass that he made, that Ernest Musi scored from, he's played that quite often, and this is even like when he's firing on all cylinders and he's great. We could be playing so well, and there has been a stray pass like that from Kamara, and there's been occasions where we've been lucky enough to sort of bail ourselves out of jail. But it's a fantastic goal, and I think what bothers me most about it is just like he didn't even look where he was passing. Like, and I'm sure this is all drilled. Like they know, like Bouba does that pass a million times. He know that ball's almost always going out to Konsa or Kashi when he's receiving it like that on the half turn. So I can understand why he just did it, and it must have been muscle memory. But the fact he picked out the Legia player perfectly and wasn't looking where he's passing, that I think that's what's frustrating for me, because I don't mind giving the ball away. I don't mind turning over possession when you're being pressed high and it's this and it's that. But that it almost felt too easy for them, mate, because realistically, Legia weren't in this game for large portions of it, if we're being completely honest. So to give him a goal like that, it was quite frustrating.
Yeah, it's in a way, it's probably because we've come so good at this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That like we're so good now playing out of the back that it's kind of become second nature for players. But much better to have it happen in a game like this, when we've got a much better chance of getting into it, and there's not as much on the line as we were kind of talking about than happen, say, this weekend, or God forbid next weekend. But yeah, it's really interesting. So I'm watching it back now, literally as I'm talking, and there is a scan from Bouba, so he quickly checks left before he plays the pass, but it is like really quickly, and maybe it's kind of a bit like when you're on your driving test and you have to kind of do like mirror signal whatever, and you kind of check your mirrors and you kind of look at them. You're not really like looking at them, you're mostly doing it to impress your driving instructor. Kind of looks like one of those, and so he kind of looks left and then delivers it. But my favorite thing kind of about this goal, and we can say it now, is when I think it's Musi that takes the shot and scores the goal, because he takes it from like a really bizarre angle, and there is a Legia player in the box on the penalty spot in acres of space, and as he hits the ball, he throws his arms up in the air and he's like, why are you passing it to me? And then the ball kind of like hits the back of the net and he's like, oh, okay, fair enough. And kind of runs off to see the referee. And we can laugh about it now. But that did make me smile at the time. But yeah, it's a wonderful goal. It's a wonderful goal. And I think that kind of did maybe, Bouba, you can see afterwards, he's absolutely devastated with giving the ball away. But I think for a lot of the ground, seeing it kind of finished and hit the back of the net like that maybe took some of the heat off Bouba, because it is ultimately then a brilliant goal, because it's not like he puts him straight one-on-one with Olsen.
No.
Do you know what I mean? There's still like two defenders in the way, and he's still got a hell of a lot to do to finish from there. And so, yeah, it's probably worked out a little better for Bouba, and it is such a good goal because there's kind of a fair play element to it.
Yeah, no, it was an unreal finish, to be fair. You got to give him credit. He couldn't have asked for a better opportunity, really. But yeah, I think really the sort of the main takeaway from this for me, mate, was I'd forgotten how good at football Alex Moreno was. He's come back, and
yes,
it's almost as if he wasn't injured and he hasn't spent all this time out. And I think the big difference for me, and listen, don't take this the wrong way, there's no Luca Dean slander here at all. He has done his part and more. He has been fantastic for us this season. But Alex is just a little bit more technical, offers something a little bit different, really quick feet. And there was one or two instances where he was sort of able to sort of dribble himself out of two or three players. And you just think like, wow, like that's something that we've missed. We don't really have many players that possess that kind of skill and quick feet. And he was really direct. My only complaint is I don't think we utilised him anywhere near enough as we should have done in this game. And I think that kind of changed when we bring JJ on, which is obviously good news again. It's a great goal from Moreno. Centre halves are clearly too busy occupying John Duran, and they missed that run from Moreno, and he takes it really well. Really happy for him to score on his first start back. But yeah, I feel like that we're starting to find ourselves in a good place now, and obviously, knock on wood, everything's okay with Watkins. But it's one of them where, all of a sudden, we're starting to look like a completely different outlet. I think that left-hand side of JJ and Moreno is going to cause so many teams trouble when they're firing on all cylinders, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, I think it's nice for me, giving Luka that shout, because he has been, I think, an unsung hero of this season, particularly when you consider the narrative going into the season. That it was all about him leaving. There was talks of Saudi Arabia, and Alex Moreno had kind of come in and completely usurped him, and he went from feeling like a bit of an outcast to one of, if not the most important players on the side, because there's no replacement there. I know Tyrone can play a little bit on the left-hand side, but he's injured. It was God forbid, if Luka Dean picked up an injury, we would be really in trouble. And I think performances have been great, have been really good from Luka, but it's nice to see Alex back, and I was really happy that he got the goal. Again, Douglas Luiz with an absolutely outrageous pass. And I thought it was just a really nice kind of moment to see him come in and finish that. And obviously, he's definitely missed playing at Villa Park. You can see that in his celebration. And so it would be really nice to kind of have that option. But I think it will be that kind of going forward for Moreno. I think he will now be an option. I don't think, given how well Luka Dean has played, that he's going to come in and the pecking order will be completely re-established. I think Luka Dean has definitely given Emery a decision to make, and it may be that there are games where we fancy Digne more than Moreno and vice versa. And so it'd be interesting to kind of see just how much of a headache Digne's performances have given Unai going forward. But I mean, yeah, there's probably only one man in the stadium that was a little bit disappointed to see Moreno run at the end of that free kick and score, and it probably was Luka Dean, because the last thing that you need to see from your counterpart coming in back to the team after a long-term injury is they're running onto a free kick and volleying it into the roof of the net. But yeah, great goal from Moreno, and I was absolutely buzzing for the lad. So yeah, really nice. But again, kind of similar with JJ, mate, in that we've got so many options, and we were talking about this on the last podcast, so many options in certain positions now that there is genuine competition for places. And now with Moreno back, you can extend that to left back too.
Yeah, I feel like before we wrap up, mate, we have to talk about Bailey, because it's another great cameo, another great appearance, and he's really unlucky to have been denied by the goal line. And I think if you're being super harsh, you've got to say he's got to follow his shot up, because that can happen. But when you're outside of the box and you've chipped the keeper in the manner that you've just done, I think it's fair for him to assume that it was going in. So it's one of the, and as soon as it sort of hits off the crossbar, he's sort of going watch, come on, check your watch. It's a shame for Leon, really, and obviously for us to not get the 2 goals that we've mentioned so many times. But I feel like it's another really good performance from him. And again, similarly with Moreno, it's given Unai something different to think about. I want to talk about Duran and I want to talk about Zaniolo, but I feel like we should probably save that for the preview, mate. And I think there's probably a conversation that we need to have about Nicolo Zaniolo, because I'm starting to not lose faith, but it's just not looking great. But I'm sure we'll cover that in the preview, mate. So thank you guys for listening to this podcast. Dan and I will be back very soon. We're actually going to record the preview right now. But this podcast is going to end. So if you're listening on YouTube, thank you very much. 10 subscribers off 15k. So if you're watching and you're not subscribed, it would mean the world. Comment your thoughts below. If you're on Apple and Spotify, share, download, follow. It all helps. And up the Villa.